Yes, everyone. Hello to the Tottenham Weekly podcast, the Irish Hotspur podcast, the Harris Army, everybody that's listening to this one. We've made a few changes to the podcast. We've decided to sort of upgrade it a little bit, maybe make some sort of January signings even to the podcast. Gave the squad a little bit of an upgrade, gave some new topics, some new segments, Dave, and I'm excited because I think, some of it's kind of still a little bit of a therapy for me here, a bit of fun for myself, and some of it also kind of gets you maybe a bit more involved. So I think it's good for everybody. But one of them is involving the social medias. But before anything, Dave, good to see you. Good to have you back on the podcast. We're also going to try to be a bit more regular with it. We are releasing one today whenever you see this or whenever you pick this up, but we are going to be a bit more consistent about it and start releasing these Monday as well for you, everybody. We're going to try to stay consistent with them, so you know when to expect them and you know when to look forward to them. But Dave, how are you keeping?
No, I'm absolutely buzzing, Jack. I think this one's probably going to set me off rather than enlighten me, I would say. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it, Jack. Let's get going because there's one topic on my mind that I haven't been able to escape for the last 3 to 4 days, and it's really irking me. So let's get into it. Let's just get straight into it, Jack. Let's hash it out.
Less therapy, less enlightenment, more anger. Some people are looking forward to this one. What's going around on the socials? This is a segment that we want to actually get going, everybody. So I'm going to explain it really quickly, and I will explain it sort of briefly for each of the next few podcasts so people can get involved. If you do like those Twitter Reacts, which is that show where we do react to the games, we do maybe feel like this is an excellent opportunity for you to really put your best work into those sort of Twitter Reacts. So if you are on the Twitter, if you are on the social media of the Twitter app at the moment in time, and we will get on Facebook as well, maybe incorporate that too. Feel free to put in your comments whenever we do the Twitter React show, because I think this is a great way to get your comment involved in that show, but also get your comment involved here on the podcast. And so for this time being, though, we are going to sort of use this as a sort of thought-provoking, maybe kind of Twitter thought-provoking kind of social kind of reaction. And Dave here put out a Twitter post just on December 7th saying rumors of an Eric Dier new contract. And we all know that's not going to make Dave feel good. And he says, how can you reward your worst player of the first half of the season who's cost us a lot of points? It makes absolutely no sense. You have to earn what you're given. It's not a good look on the club, nor does it set a good example going forward. I think that was well put there, Dave. And Dawson here, it's the reason I've kind of highlighted this is that I'm kind of even confused where he's at. It's almost like he's put his feet in both camps here when it comes to the Eric Dier sort of agenda. So I don't know, Dawson. I would say credit to you here because you're going to be shouted out here on the new segment of this podcast for what's going around on the socials. And instead of this being kind of a funny one or anything that we would do for this, Dave, it's going to be a very thought-provoking one. And he says here, not a chance in response to your Eric Dier new contract and whether he deserves one. He says not a chance, so he doesn't believe he deserves one. He has been the worst player of the first half of the season, in my opinion. And yes, he has been, and yes, he has had a bad spell. But over the last year and a half, and maybe even 2 years, he has earned it. As I said, he has been fairly poor recently and has to show that he has earned a new deal. So he's sort of kind of thinking that Eric Dier maybe hasn't been as bad as you maybe like to say, Dave, over a long stretch of time. But he's not convinced that he deserves it either. Even as maybe, let's say, a bit more of an Eric Dier fan than you are, he still doesn't even think that he deserves it. And so kind of the question that we're going to sort of use here on this new segment of what's going around on the socials, we're going to use Dawson's kind of Twitter comment here and ask Dave, Dier new contract, is he unusable like maybe you think, Dave? Or maybe like Dawson, can he stick around? Is there maybe a spot for him in I don't know, in the depths of the squad? Can he take over the Sanchez role, as I like to say, Dave? I don't know. Let me know. Like, where is there a future for Eric Dier? Maybe, I don't know, like playing the Sanchez role, not playing nearly as much. Maybe that might actually get maybe a more realistic kind of a performance out of him. I'm not sure. Take it away, Dave. But let's use Dawson's comment for this little topic here.
Look, I'll start by being really realistic. And when I look at the way we operate, and in order to formulate a squad we need, they're probably tying him down to a new contract because they do envision him being some part of the squad going forward. And I think more so in a backup role. I don't think Paratici or Conte are stupid enough, especially after Dier showing at the start of the first half of this season, in my opinion, that they're going to think that this guy is capable of delivering trophies or helping them get to where Conte ultimately wants to go to. So I do think eventually they'll bring in a first choice striker. Now, let's get into it. Why does a player get a new contract, Jack? So a player gets a new contract because it's a reward for your progress and for your development if you're a youngster, but also as a senior pro for your progress, for your performances on the pitch, right? And with that contract becomes bigger wages, bigger bonuses like appearance fees, clean sheet fees, which he doesn't have many of, by the way. So we're probably actually saving there with him there. And that's probably why we're giving him a new contract, Jack, in terms of that's on top of the Champions League bonuses he takes in per match, Premier League bonus per match, on top of whatever other clauses he wants in there, right? So it's a reward. So why are we rewarding a player that has cost us at least 8 points this season, has made some high-profile errors? He is actually one of the main reasons, not just him, but one of the main reasons why we're not sitting first in the Premier League right now and we're sitting fourth where we are. He is, because some of the mistakes he made over that October-November period. Now, you look at defender Jack, right? Mm-hmm. Like some key attributes, core attributes a defender should have. Calm under pressure. I wouldn't use that to describe Eric Dier. Able to communicate clearly. I wouldn't use that to describe Eric Dier. And technically proficient. Wouldn't use that to describe Eric Dier as well, Jack.
But he is multilingual, Dave. Maybe he can communicate clear.
This was something that was told at me over the summer, Jack. The guy's multi-bilingual. He helps all these other players from nations settle in. But you never see him talking to them on the pitch at all, ever, Jack. Ever is he ever talking to them? Sorry, it's not my kind of coke. All you ever see is him blaming them for mistakes that he's made. Now, you also look at the guy, another key attribute, positioning. Well, I mean, he literally ran off Callum Wilson against Newcastle and just left him free. Positioning, not so sure. Tactical awareness, not so sure. I will give him strength and good in the air. He's okay there. But there's so many flaws to his game, Jack. And for me, he persisting with a guy like him is also hindering us in so many other ways. Now, look, I know Conte doesn't really set up this way, but it'd be nice to have a centre-back that can defend one-on-one instead of dropping all the time into his own 6-yard box and gifting people angles to shoot into the corners, this, that, and the other. You need a guy that can defend one-on-one so you'll be able to press higher up the pitch. How many times have I sat there? As soon as we're starting off games okay, pass that around nicely. How many times during watch-alongs have I sat there? Next thing, Dier balloons one into stands, takes a heavy touch, undercooks a pass. How many times have I told you there's a goal coming down in the next few minutes? And it happens, which goes to show if fans are feeling like that, imagine what people around him every single day are feeling when he starts doing that sort of shit. It has a knock-on effects to the rest of the team, the confidence levels, this, that, and the other. There's so much to it. At the end of the day, for me, even if you want to make the argument, okay, but you had a good season last season, okay. But what was my main critic this summer? Can he back it up this season? Or is it a manager bounce? I've seen manager bounces with this guy before, under Jose Mourinho, under Nuno for a little period of time. I've seen it all before. But can you do it on a prolonged, consistent basis, which is what Tottenham need, to be able to start delivering success here, to be able to stay amongst the top four? Even just stay amongst the top four in the Premier League, with Newcastle coming up, Liverpool about to be bought, United about to be bought. There's going to be so much more money flowing around the Premier League and so much more teams looking to take that fourth spot in the Premier League. We're not even talking about lifting trophies, talking about top four. Is he going to be good enough on a consistent basis? And now you're talking, because what you need out of these guys mostly is weekend, midweek, weekend. Can he do it? He's already proven he can't. He can have a decent game here and a shit game there. I'm sorry, but it's not good enough. I'm bored of it, I'm absolutely bored. This guy, he's been here so long. He's part of the furniture. You would, like many people would say, that he's probably a major part of that dressing room. But we all know that dressing room is mentally weak when it comes to the big games, when the pressure's on them. And we've seen this time and time and time again. We need to change that. It's boring. It's old. Just get rid of him. Get someone new, someone that's going to lead that back line, that's going to speak to people. He's got the easiest role across that back line, Jack, at centre back. He is the easiest role there, and he still makes it look incredibly hard. He's just not good enough. Look, if this guy done 2, 3, 4 years, I'd say, okay, give him a contract renewal. He deserves it. But right now, as we stand, does he deserve it? No. But also, if the club gives it to him, especially off the back of the period he's had, it's only going to anger the fans. It's only going to anger the fans. I just don't think he deserves it, Jack. For me, it's got to be a reward. It's got to be earned. And then also, what standard are you setting for your youth players that they can just do what they want around here? They can have a good game one week, bad game the next week. You've got to set the standard that you've got to be on it every single day, every single day in training, every single match. You have to set that standard for the youngsters. That's how you get the best and only the best coming through the ranks, into your senior team eventually. That's how when new players come in here, they know there's no messing around. You've got to be on it every single day. Every single day, every single game, you've got to be up to the rigors, the demands, and everything else. This guy has proven he can't do it. Why are we offering a new contract? And even if you want to make this argument, sorry, Jack, I know you want to get in. I'm just passionate. Even if you want to make the argument that, we're giving him a new contract, protect his value. Have we not learnt lessons? We put value on Winks and offering him new contracts. What did we get for him? Zilch. Dele Alli. We're offering him new contracts even though he wasn't performing. What did we get for him? Zilch. A lot of these players that we bought over the Steve Hitching time and some of these other guys that have been here a bit longer that we think are good, they're not good. The likes of Winks, Ali, Dier, they're staying around because they're their English status for the squad registrations. But is that good enough, or should we not be aiming to have the best of the English talent around so that we can fill it with that quote and stuff like that, rather than accept mediocrity? All these guys have had time and time again to prove it. They failed. Get them gone. Get new guys in.
A lot of people even felt like in Eric Dyer's case, Dave, that he didn't even really fit the English quota, so you couldn't even really give him that sort of benefit of the doubt either, or that sort of kind of extra leg up, let's say. Another thing too, I must add, is that you sort of brought up maybe how the level of the Premier League or the standard of the Premier League is starting to rise, right? For just every position, it's just rising for every player, just across the world. If you want to play in the Premier League, it's going to be a bit harder than maybe, let's say, it used to be. That's the standards have risen because of the money that's in it, because of the investment that's in it, because of what also maybe so many more clubs expect of their team. There's so many teams now that basically are expecting to finish inside, let's say, the top 6 that aren't really traditional top 6 teams, or aren't really teams that you would say normally would want to always put their leg in there. But you look at now, like how competitive it's become, it certainly is, right, a much higher standard. And even if you were, let's say, a big Eric Dier fan, Dave, would you even really say, with maybe what you just brought up with how the standards of the Premier League have risen, does that mean then that Eric Dier sort of has to take a step down from Spurs? Because if the standards have risen, he can't really exactly play for a club that wants to finish inside the top 4 every single season, wants to be maybe pushing for a title at some stage with Antonio Conte and whatnot. He can't really stick around if what you're saying is true with the standards of the Premier League rising. He would have to go to, let's say, maybe a Wolves, right, where he can speak Portuguese and be able to be the multilingual center back. Maybe he becomes the new Connor Cody or something like that for a team like that. He takes a step down to maybe, I don't know, a Crystal Palace, Mark Gahey, maybe he steps up to Spurs, something kind of like that. It just feels like even if you were the biggest Eric Dier fan, if what you're saying is true with the standards of the Premier League, with sort of the levels of center backs that are coming in, with how much the more, let's say, elite clubs, the more top 6, top 4 clubs demand from their center backs, he may not really fit that bill anymore. It might not really fit that sort of criteria any longer. And that's, I don't know, like you can only criticize him so much when you're kind of looking at it in that lens. It just means he has to take a step down. Actually, it just means
Jack,
he has to go to a mid-table club. It means he has to go to a club that can't expect to be challenging for, let's say, a top 4 spot, I would argue, because I don't think Eric Dier, as we maybe have already seen this season, is the one. And maybe in previous seasons, you would definitely argue too with how he capitulates in October. It's not really the one that you would go after if you want to really push for top four. So that means with the rising levels of the Premier League, he probably has to take a step down to a different club in the Premier
But
League if he wants to stay around in the Prem,
we
of
also
course.
lose focus and sight, Jack, of the fact that we signed this guy from Sporting as a right back. He actually argued with Pochettino because Pochettino envisioned him as a centre back. He didn't want to play there. He wanted to play centre midfield. He didn't want to play centre back. He only went in and played centre back under Jose Mourinho because he was basically told it's the only way you're going to get minutes. So you either play there or you don't. This guy isn't even a natural centre back. And that's where you see the inconsistency in his game. Because not great at positioning wise, this, that, and the other, being erratic, being caught like going forward. Like against the Forest game, last cup game, you know, he ran up the pitch, lost the ball, and he's rolling around crying about his finger. Where's your sacrifice? Where's your hurting for the badge, going through the pain? Get back, wait till the ball goes out playing, then worry about it. It's just a lack of fundamentals and the basics and this, that, and the other. And there's so many excuses surrounding these guys. Look, I get he could be a good human being. I'm not knocking him. He's a solid human being, Jack. People are probably like the fact that he went up defending his brother. He's been around here 8 years. You know, surely there's something in the guy you like if he's been around here that long. But we can't let that cloud our judgment. We've got to analyze it. Where does he stack up against other Premier League defenses? Like, does he get into their teams? No, he doesn't. He's only in the England setup by default because they have the worst crop of centre-backs in my lifetime that they have to pick from. And the fact that Maguire starts over him, who's been dropped by Man United, and Dier plays week in, week out for Tottenham, what does that tell you? And most people mock Maguire. I tell you, I'd rather have Maguire than Dier. You know, at the end of the day, this guy is not good enough to get us to where we need to go to. So I don't want him here. I just want him gone, and I want someone brought in here that'll do the job. I'll bring someone else in that's a natural centre back, a younger guy that that can fill in as his backup or whatever else. But just get rid of Eric Dier. He's had plenty of time to prove that he's good enough to take us to trophies. Potter's best 11, he was always a backup. Played for Jose Mourinho at centre back because it was the only way he was going to get minutes. Nuno, ultimately ended up letting him down, and he's now letting Conte down as well. The guy cannot keep it up long enough for Tottenham Hotspur to progress. And then we all get frustrated with the lack of trophies. We get frustrated with performances being up here and down here. Well, he's a massive part of the reason why with some of the goals mistakes that he's made. And it hasn't just been this season. You go back under Jose Mourinho, there was a period of time, I think it was Aston Villa, then Leeds. I think he made like 4 or 5 mistakes in 2 games directly leading to goals, and it's just been consistent with this guy in that position. You know, like I keep saying to people, we will always score goals at Tottenham. We have the players up front to do it. It doesn't matter. We'll score goals, but we can't keep them out. And we're forgetting how frustrated we were over October, November, how frustrating we were to watch, how frustrating we was because we couldn't keep goals out and the mistakes we're making. And all of a sudden, Tottenham's gone, the World Cup's in, we're talking about new right wing back, even though right wing back isn't directly costing us goals. Centre back and that back line is, and we're now talking about bringing in a creative midfielder. I mean, we score goals at Tottenham. What do we not understand? Sometimes you have to keep a clean sheet out. And if you want to bring trophies here, you do you go by what great people before have said. Sir Alex Ferguson, Man United manager, attacks win your games, defense wins your leagues. And the reason why I said defense wins your leagues is because you need them to consistently roll out every single week, midweek as well, and keep clean sheets, which then gives your attack every opportunity to go and score 1, 2, or 3 goals and take the 3 points. But having a solid foundation at the back, it's like building a building. You have to have a solid foundation before all the flair and all the pizzazz comes into it. So we have to concentrate on that area. And giving Eric Dier a contract only alienates the fans, pisses them off, doesn't set a good example for any player coming in here because the standard you're setting is, well, it's okay to be up and down. We'll take you on how your mood is. No good example for the youngsters because, again, it doesn't matter. Oh, you're feeling sad today, grand. You can put in a shit performance. You're still going to get all your bonuses and your paycheck. Oh, we're feeling great today, grand. Go out and give me a good performance. It's not good enough. We should demand better and we should want better. And by doing that, we will get better.
It just felt, I don't know. Can I just ask a quick question, Dave? Do you feel like he was good enough when as a backup under Pochettino, like I said before, if given this sort of Sanchez role where he's kind of dipped in and out every few games when, let's say, an injury or something
He was
picks
always
up.
injured.
Can he play that role?
He was always injured under Pochettino. Always injured. Always injured. He was never there.
Can he
Look,
do it now where maybe he's like less so injured? It doesn't feel like
for
he
me,
has
my
maybe.
problem is, Jack, right? Even if, like we say, okay, but keep him around as backup. That's maybe the whole idea of giving a new contract. Keep him around as backup. Correct me if I'm wrong. Was he not a part of the team, the squad for the Europa League games that didn't want to be known as backups around here, and they weren't happy with it, even though it was made clear to them. So why do we think all of a sudden him reverting back to that role, he's going to change his attitude? He's not. He's going to be unhappy. What I say to you is bring in a world-class centre-back here, make him fight for his position, see how happy he is on the bench, and see if he's willing to sign his contract then.
Yeah, that's really what probably needs to happen is bring in that, brilliant center back that can displace him. Does he still feel keen enough to sign the center back? Because a lot of people believe that he thinks he is worth being a first team starter center back. Maybe at this stage in the career, he might want to be that Connor Cody over at the likes of Wolves. Transfer Fraud Watch, new segment on this podcast here. One that I kind of just feel like is maybe a fun one, maybe a bit of a sort of a palate cleanser as we go kind of in between sort of the topics that we like to kind of discuss here. Amrabat being Sofiane Amrabat, the Moroccan international, and Franck Kessié are kind of the two kind of new center mids that I'm seeing linked with Spurs. Sofiane Amrabat, I'm going to kind of talk about first. I could see why there's the links being made because we were heavily linked with him last season, and we were heavily linked with him in the January transfer window. I did a big scout report on Sofiane Amrabat. Welcome to check it out in the archives of last year. But where I feel like it's a bit silly to go after him, and where I feel like maybe it is actually a bit of a fraud sort of transfer rumor, maybe to be fair, Dave, is that it felt like it was between Bentancur or Amrabat, and maybe even Amrabat was sort of like how do they put it with Paratici, kind of a bit of a cloak and dagger or whatever it is, I don't know, a curtain or whatever the term is, but they use it. He kind of maybe used Amrabat as kind of a decoy.
Yeah.
That's maybe more the right word for the likes of Bentancur, excuse me. Yeah, more of a decoy for the Bentancur signing. Is that going to happen this season after this World Cup transfer window? I don't know, really, Dave. It just feels like maybe after the World Cup, after that performance, that's what sort of, what's going to happen is he's been linked with Spurs in the past, and they're just going to come up with reasons for maybe why Spurs could be theoretically rumored with Amrabat. So I'm going to call maybe fraud on this one, Dave. Definitely not fraud. I'm going to call it fraud. Going to give it the big check mark or green mark, or I'm going to say the fraud mark is a green mark in this podcast. Imagine, a big check mark on the Amrabat one. And the player that I actually think Spurs should be maybe more taking a look at on that Moroccan international team is that Unahi. I actually thought he had a brilliant game when I actually watched the full the match between them in Spain. And he plays over at Angers, looking really good for them. So I've heard as well, 21 years old or 22 years old, actually quite young in comparison to Amrabat. It feels like maybe he would be more the central midfielder that Spurs should actually take a look at. Unahi is his name. Franck Kessié, I might just be quite quick with this one, if you ask me. He just signed on a free transfer over at the likes of FC Barcelona. I believe whatever his name is, something descendant of the Cruyffs, Jordi Cruyff, maybe his name is the one of the directors or maybe new presidents. I don't know. I mean, Barcelona, Dave, they go through presidents these days, like the likes of FIFA. But Kessié is, I think, going to stick around at least for the rest of the season. I'd be surprised that they sort of capitalize on a transfer here. It'd be smart of them to sign him on a free and then get a transfer fee out of it to get their money back and to maybe get some money back into the bank. But knowing FC Barcelona, Dave, they don't really make smart financial decisions. So I imagine that Kessié is going to be sticking around, and he'll be sticking around and not playing a single game for them for the rest of the season, and it'll just continue to be a bit of a kind of what if scenario for the likes of Franck Kessié. Someone that was rumored for us, though, of course, I think it was over the summer and in kind of the January window, along the likes of Amrabat and Bentancur. Franck Kessié has been heavily kind of linked with Spurs. So again, sort of kind of feels like maybe a long time linked with Spurs, maybe because he hasn't really played very much over this sort of kind of initial part of the season. He could kind of go back to the likes of a club that would maybe consider playing him. But we signed the likes of a Basuma too, and that's maybe what I'm also forgetting. We signed Bentancur, we signed Basuma. We're sort of stacked. Like, it felt like we kind of did what we wanted in that position. We signed basically the Amrabats and the Kessiers by signing Bentancur and Basuma. We already have Højbjerg, we have Skip. What we really need is a much different type of midfielder. James Maddison, in my opinion, maybe more of a McAllister, but that's a different conversation. But yeah, I'm going to call fraud on that one too, Dave, on Kessié. Any kind of opinions here?
Just a broad opinion, Jack. Some of these transfer rumors do make me laugh. Look, you throw Adama Traore into this one, throw Tomiyasu into this one. We're forgetting the strategy here. There's always 10 names, 10 links, this, that, and the other. It's look over here, but not over here. Amrabat was used. We brought in Bentancur. Traore was used. We brought in Kulu. Kessie was another one linked with this, that, and the other. But my point is, you look at Tomiyasu, link. Romero brought in. It's kind of like there's a history of this. It's like, for me, I think it's just lazy journalism. They look back, what were the links over the summer, Grand World Cup, need to fill a few voids, a few column sections, a few papers. Let's just reword it and throw them out there. If you actually look, are they achievable? You would say Amrabat, yes, but we already declined taking him in favor of bringing in Bentancur. That's why we stalled on that deal in the first place. Kessie, or Kessié, whatever you want to call him, only joined Barcelona, so I don't think it's attainable. So for me, even Adama Traore, I just look. It's all like I see this time and time again, link with these guys, and it just never comes true. If you look, since Paratici's been here, a lot of these names are always thrown up every transfer window, but yet we get in completely different names.
Another thing too is that these are sort of just players that we could have signed in the past, but instead signed different players. In the case of Amrabat, we signed a Bentancur. In the case of Kessié, we signed Basuma. So it's just sort of, I don't know, and it sort of makes sense because they're all sort of kind of that similar mold of type of players as well. So I don't know, yeah.
And I'd also reiterate, like you said, it doesn't solve what their perception of the problem is in that midfield, which I don't agree with, by the way, but it's just creativity, even though I think Højbjerg and Bentancur picked up on that department. Yeah. But you're looking for more of a playmaker type.
Looking for very different types of
playmaker. Nowhere near it. They're very similar to what we've already got. So for me, I'm going to call fraud on these media outlets who are putting these ones up.
Yeah. And sadly, if the Don were to put those in and actually were to sign those, we'd have to answer for it, but I doubt the Don is going to make us do that. We know him quite well, the Paratici twins over here on the podcast. This is the topic here. After doing that bit of the palate cleanser on the transfer fraud, does Richie, being Richarlison, deserve to start when he returns back to Spurs and being Tottenham? How do we fit in Richarlison? Can Conte make a tweak to the system or maybe the shape that we have right now in order to bring in that beautiful number 9 of ours? Dave, it is kind of a confusing one with Richarlison because he has tried to fit him in by sort of playing him as a right winger. He has shown to maybe need some work, to need some time, to need some sort of, I don't know, patience, but we don't really have that at the moment, you could say, especially when Kulusevski was hurt. We did not have that with Richarlison at right wing. We needed him to be a lot better than that. But when playing as a number 9 for the likes of Brazil, we've seen exactly maybe why Spurs did sign him, why he's wearing the number 9 shirt for Brazil, why he's wearing the number 9 shirt for Spurs, is that when given that license to be a striker and play through the middle, he can be lethal. He can be exciting. He can do the dirty work. He can also kind of do maybe the work that, let's say, other strikers sort of might be reluctant to do, pressing the back line, making selfish runs in behind, also as well, kind of just holding it up. Maybe while sometimes he scores a brace, he might get 2 or 3 kind of passes to an assist by holding it up for other players. I think Richie really does sort of embody, let's say, maybe more of the traditional kind of number 9, maybe of the past, like one that doesn't he drops deep from time to time, but is happy to put, his back on the defender, hold things up, and also be happy to make unselfish runs in behind, happy to throw his head at anything in case it's put in the air from across. He just sort of has maybe all the tools to be a classic number 9. And perhaps Spurs need this, Dave. I don't know. Like, we do have Harry Kane as sort of the best hybrid creative striker in the world, and that he can do a lot of those things I just described that Richarlison can do. Maybe less so sort of the running behind nowadays, but I do think Kane can hold it up just as good as anybody else, if not better. He can also be able to sort of throw his head at things and be able to jump up and be able to try to overpower his center back. But maybe the pressing and the running in behind, those sort of things have sort of kind of, let's say, fallen out of his game a little bit as a striker, also considering his age, but also because he is such a creative player that he feels the need to also get involved into the play and get people out of tricky situations and also kind of get play going, because he knows in one pass he can sort of solve a whole team's problems with his vision and how he sees things. And a lot of people don't give him credit for that. I think the reason why he often drops deep is so that he can sort of kind of problem solve for teams by just getting 1 or 2 passes in there that can kind of unlock a whole team that maybe looked like it was really difficult to sort of unlock. So I don't know, for you, Dave, is there something that Richie can sort of do, or is there something Conte can do to maybe fit in Richarlison with how well he's been playing and how much he has shown us over here as at Tottenham that he can play as a number 9?
Right, so let's start with the current formation in the 3-4-3 or whatever you want to call it. I call it a 5-2-3 personally.
Yeah.
So you're not going to fit him in there because he's already demonstrating. And although I do feel like he should be doing better, even though on either side he was atrocious, absolutely atrocious, non-existent, didn't really do much. Where were people talking about Richarlison at Tottenham? When he went into a central position against Marseille, in the box, 2 headers. Now they're talking about Matt Brazil, where he's playing in the middle, central. So no more of this left or right. Can't do it. His best position is through the middle. We know this. So there's the unrealistic version where you kind of go back to what we were on the pitch, 4-2-3-1, drop Kane back, put Richarlison up front. That means you can keep Son and Kulu either side of him. And there's your players going forward. But Conte's not going to play a back 4. We all know this. So the only other formation you can play, Jack, is a 5-2-1-2 or a 5-3-2 in simple terms. And that means you put Perisic left wing back, Kulu right wing back, Son and Richarlison up front, and drop Kane as playing more of a sort of like a cam, gets on the ball, because Kane has the ability to play balls into the space. And like not always directly to the player's foot, but into the space and be able to get enough weight on it for the player to be able to run onto it. He can play it to player's feet. He's got a good passing range. And I think when I look at Kane at Tottenham, he's a great hold-up player, Jack. You know, he's holding up the ball, this, that, and the other. I think when Kulu plays on the right, even it does help him, it frees him up a little bit more. But when Kulu isn't there, everything is into Kane. And even everything that goes into Son. And a lot of times it doesn't get held up because there's nobody else around them. Whereas if you can alleviate that, you can get Kane dropping deeper into these pockets of space. He can pick up the ball and he can spray the passes, because he's the type of player now, and at the level he's at, I'm just telling you now because I've been in that situation. He doesn't trust anybody else behind him to find him. Yeah. He just doesn't. That's why he doesn't make the runs. That's why he's very cautious when he runs. I guarantee you, he looks back and says, so-and-so's got the ball, not making a run off the ball. He's never going to find me. He's not going to waste his energy. And plus, I think he also realizes he gets more accolades dropping back, picking up the ball, spraying passes, trying to get on the end of things than what he does, just putting the ball in the back of the net. So For me, look, I think Richarlison's just going to have to come back, either accept when he does get minutes out wide, do it 10 times better and try and affect the game out there, or just wait for Harry Kane and put him on there 20 minutes to go in some games and say, right, Kane, we're taking you off so you're fully fresh to start the next game, or cup
Yeah,
game,
yeah.
stuff like that, which is why I wanted this guy here in the first place. So,
Can I ask a bit of a hipster tactical question here for
mm,
you, Dave? We've seen for the likes of Brazil that they've somehow found a way to fit Richarlison in as the typical number 9, Neymar in behind slash next to him, sort of as this kind of creative midfield slash second striker slash just Neymar role, I guess. And then they've also found Vinicius Jr. still to be able to take his left wing sort of spot. I feel like you said, that's not possible for Spurs because of the fact that we have to play in the 3 in the back, and that's where Conte is able to get his best football. Can we maybe go for some sort of kind of rotations type system where it is sort of like you said, maybe a 3, or let's say, just say for all points and purposes here, a 5-2-1-2 sort of situation, like you said, where it's Højbjerg and Bentancur, and maybe Kulusevski in behind the likes of Kane and Richarlison up top, or Richarlison is able to occupy a lot of that sort of central space, make runs wherever he wants, press wherever he wants. Kane can kind of maybe rotate and sort of roam wherever he likes as well, slash not be totally responsible to drop deep, maybe like maybe a Kulusevski could. Maybe Kulusevski can sort of play maybe more in front of Højbjerg and Bentancur, help out a little bit. Kane kind of plays the Neymar role alongside Richarlison by being able to sort of play kind of centrally, but also be able to kind of just do whatever he wants because he's Kane, kind of like how Neymar is Neymar, just kind of gets to play a role where he gets to do whatever he wants and doesn't have to do all sort of the unselfish work that kind of a number 9 has to do. And Richarlison can do all that unselfish work that maybe we sort of need actually sometimes with Conte and in that number 9 role. But I don't know. Is that overthinking it? What do you think of that? Could you slam it down?
for me, when you look at Richarlison, right, his touches have been heavy. He's been caught offside numerous times. He's lost the ball
Especially
countless.
in the wing areas, he gets caught offside all the
Yeah,
time. Exactly.
right. And it's kind of like, so if you're fitting him into the team, you still have to keep everybody else in around him. You can't drop a Kulu, you can't drop a Son, you can't drop a Kane, or a
You would be
Perisic.
dropping Son in the scenario that I said. Yeah, you
Yeah,
would be. Yeah.
and for
But I was
me,
thinking maybe Sonny comes in for Richarlison and plays the exact same role where he plays a bit centrally and sort of occupies that kind of number 9 role, maybe to a degree. I don't know. What do you think?
no. For me, I think look, Kane, Son, and Kulu in a tree is our best attacking outlet.
Mm,
If you're going to make allowances for Richarlison on that right hand side, you can't have an Emerson or a Doherty running down there. You have to have Kulu. You have to
help them
have
out. To
that
help them out.
output out there. You have to have someone that's comfortable on the ball so that your strikers can make the runs into the box, but Kane can also follow up play without being caught out. Because
Yeah.
if your fullback's constantly losing the ball or giving it away, you're being caught out and you're being counted on. Whereas if you have Kulu, who he doesn't always need a passing option because he has the strength to knock it by them, hold them off, and the sprint speed to get onto the end of it. He can cross a ball. He can look after the ball. He can hold it up and wait for help. You have to have a player like that either side. So you have to have Perisic, who is a good crosser of the ball. You have to have Kulu, who offers that. You can't have someone that's constantly going to lose the ball. Plus, if you're looking to find them runs in behind, it's not always going to come to Harry Kane because there will come a point where oppositions are just going to specifically do what Morocco done to Sergio Busquets the other day. Strap someone back, you're literally, if he goes for a shit, you wipe his ass. You know what I mean? It's
Mm,
that sort of scenario. So then you need players from the wide areas to be able to play them balls in behind, play them balls over the top. And so you're going to need players that can do that on a consistent basis. So for me, look, I would much rather continue with the formation we're playing, have Kane, Son, and Kulu, and just say to Richarlison, any minutes you get, you have to take them. Because for me, I don't think he's been that outstanding that you have to find a way to fit him in. Because, yeah, he's done that for Brazil, but what has he done for Tottenham?
Mm.
And that's what I care about. What he's done for Tottenham. Yeah, he's in confidence, this, that, and the other. So if he's confident in a good mood, if he gets minutes, he'll take them. Surely the next time. So for me, it's about earning them rather than just fitting them in.
It's
And it's a good
maybe
headache to have. This is the situation we wanted, where you've got players that you can rotate that are in form. You know what I mean? This is what we asked for.
it's maybe what he sort of displayed here and everything is that he is fully capable of stepping in the worst case scenario that Kane, let's say, isn't available. He can play through the middle and be his own version of a number nine and be successful for us. And also that's what a lot of people, as I pointed out in the past, Dave, have cried out about. They didn't want a new center back. They didn't want a new center mid, let's say a year ago. They wanted a number nine to challenge Kane, a number nine to be there in case Kane were hurt because of the ankle injuries and things like that. And I think Richarlison, this World Cup, is absolutely showing that for the likes of Brazil, that he's not, of course, I don't think really anyone is capable of displacing Kane up there, especially with this 3-4-3 that we're probably playing our best football with. But he is showing that he is a guy that is capable of stepping in and producing his own type of magic. And I think with the likes of Brazil, he's absolutely done that in a way. Can Conte
And
make that tweak as we put in the question there towards the end? I sort of put up a solution there, but like I maybe Dave pointed out, I think the fact that Kulusevski helps out those right wing backs that are a bit of a liability at the moment in time, he really needs to sort of be over there because he brings the best out of Doherty, brings the best out of Emerson. Unless he maybe plays Jed Spence and Jed Spence somehow proves to be the real solution. Maybe he really is all along. I think a lot of us do believe that, but might not actually happen this season for us, that we'll get
the
to see
only
that truly happen. So it might be Doherty and Emerson for the rest of the season. If that's the case, we're going to need Kulusevski right next to them to help them out. So we can't really go for this hybrid Kane, Richarlison sort of kind of thing that I was sort of proposing earlier.
Yeah, the only way of making this work realistically is switching to a back four, but we just don't have the defenders to be able to play back four, because for me, you go to back four, you can't play Perisic left back, right? You just can't. So Session's going to be in there. Is he good enough on the ball going forward consistently? No. Langlands and Romero, probably a bit too small to be able to form a partnership in it too. And there is going to be flaws in that partnership. It's not just as easy as many people think it is. Just throw Romero and Langley in it too and it's going to work. Not necessarily. Then you're back to Emerson or Doherty at right back. Are you going to see an improvement from there? No. And even if Romero, who hasn't been able to get on the pitch consistently, which means a Dier or a Sanchez or a Davies is going to have to step in at some point, and they're not good enough to defend in a four, proven under Nuno, proven under Jose. And that's why we decided to go down the route with bringing in Antonio Conte and the philosophy and the style of a five across the back to steady up a bit, because we were leaking goals left, right, and centre. So the only way you could go back to a back four, spend massive money on that back line so that you can get more attacking players in going forward. So
Mm.
there your scenarios on how it can work.
There you are, everybody. That's our other topic that we thought maybe needed to be discussed. Let us know what you think of it in the comments below. But if you're in the podcast, just keep on listening and get engaged as well, everybody, because we're going to discuss it hopefully towards the end at some stage and how you can get a bit more engaged on this podcast here. Another segment that we've come up with, and I'm going to have to explain this briefly, and I'll continue to explain it for the next few podcasts, the Jim White moment. This is where I'm going to ask Dave maybe a certain question that I sort of kind of get to play the role, I think, of the beloved Jim White. I think a brilliant host and a brilliant, let's say, a debatist, or however you put it, guy that knows how to bring the best out of his colleagues when it comes to a question. And he knows how to let's say, trigger his colleague, Simon Jordan. And I'm kind of gone for a similar one here. And I'm going to basically play that role. And I think Dave, in some sense or form, might play a bit of a Simon Jordan role, in that players that no longer play for Spurs, who are still getting love and attention, is the topic here. And maybe three good examples, you could say. Steven Bergwijn, I saw, was put up on the Spurs social media as one of our, I think they put it as some of our Spurs starlets or some of our Spurs players out in the World Cup action. feel free to watch them, sort of thing. And it was kind of odd to me because I thought Steven Bergwijn literally does not play for Spurs anymore. We had a transfer. It's not even a loan or anything like sort of situation. We had a transfer fee and everything agreed. He plays for Ajax now. He didn't even want to play for Spurs anymore. He said he doesn't even like playing for Spurs and he kind of wanted to leave and was even a bit of a toxic personality around the dressing room towards the end of the season as well. That's how much he wanted to leave. Joe Rodon was also put in that sort of Spurs graphic as well. This one, maybe you could probably be a bit more sympathetic to, but I'm not going to. I think he has probably no future at Spurs, to be honest, like for the remainder of the future, especially with Conte here. He doesn't really seem good enough for us. He looks shaky for Wales, and that's when apparently some of his best form really is for the likes of Wales. So I don't know. That also felt like a bit of a stretch to put him in that sort of graphic or image. And then Tanguy Ndombele, Dave, is also someone that a lot of, I think, just Spurs fans sort of like continue to kind of report on. A lot of big Twitter pages will show Tanguy highlights and things like that. And it's just like there is no way for him to ever get I think a spot back in the squad. He has burned his bridge, it feels like, with Tottenham Hotspur. He's sort of maybe doing us some sort of service by maybe not being complete ass and sitting on the bench over at Napoli. He is, I guess, earning himself a move over to a club potentially. And if he were to get that transfer clause or that transfer release clause, whatever it may be, triggered, I think we sort of could kind of, I don't know, we would be still upset with him in a lot of ways, but maybe at least given the benefit of the doubt that he is sort of maybe wanting just to play elsewhere in a different league and has just given up on any sort of ambition in the Premier League. But I don't know, Dave, even us just like reporting on how well he's doing over there and things like that, I think is always a stretch and a huge fabrication. It's not even like he's really doing that well in comparison to the whole of the Napoli team. There are a lot of other Napoli players I'd point out before him. I just really want to say and let you kind of come in here sort of on this. And this is going to be a segment for the next few podcasts, Dave. But I don't know, this whole thing of just idolizing players that basically no longer play for Spurs that actually have never really done anything for Spurs. And if not really the theme here, have actually wronged Spurs in a few different ways too. And we idolize them. I don't know why.
It's like a cuck situation, Jack. Cuckold. If anybody knows what that is, if you don't, go and research it and then you'll understand what I mean. But honestly, I like to call them slow news days, Jack. I mean, you see sometimes, Dele Alli played 29 minutes for Besiktas. I'm like, okay, but I typed in Spurs news, following Spurs pages. Dele Alli's out there learning to cut hair in Turkey. Who cares? I don't give a shit. At the end of the day, he screwed around at this club for 3 years. So why are we still fangirling this guy? Why are you still showing him the support, even though he let you down? Bergwijn. Oh, Bergwijn got picked for the Holland squad. Oh, Vincent Janssen. I couldn't care. What did he do at Tottenham?
Vincent Janssen.
I do not give a shit. They came here. They either haven't been good enough, haven't wanted to be good enough, or have not given 100%, and that's why it hasn't worked out in the long run. It's just lazy from these media corporations again, Jack, to me, in my opinion. They've all this money. They've got all these pros connected to them for interviews when they want. Go and ask Graham Roberts a question that will actually give the fans something that they can learn about the man, or, what makes an elite centre back in your opinion? What defines a Tottenham player? Go and ask him these stuff and actually put stuff out of use so that we know what standards of players we should be accepting and stuff like that and tolerating and getting insights off these great heroes that's actually done stuff for the club. Not a guy who puts up an Instagram or has an iconic haircut or, stupid crap. Oh, look at his Lamborghini. You couldn't give a shit. Like we like these players for the wrong reasons. Like, it's absolutely madness. Just let them go. They've let the club down. Just let them go. And plus, who cares? Once they've gone, who even cares? I do not care whether Bergwijn got picked for the Holland squad. Couldn't give a shit. I've more things to concentrate on here about, like, are we going to fit Richarlison? does Dier deserve a new contract rather than being updated on Bergwijn's situation? You know what I mean? It's absolutely ridiculous. Oh, Tangai's doing this in Napoli. Great. Couldn't care less. I actually couldn't care if he's walking down the street with his underpants on his head. I couldn't give a shit what he's doing over in Napoli. I really could
Mm,
not care. I care about what he done at Tottenham, which wasn't very much. That's the reason why he's out there. Like, we have to understand the reason why these players are no longer here is because they weren't good enough or they let us down. You know, it's absolutely insane. It's madness, Jack. It drives me mad. It's lazy news. Nobody cares, and they shat on the club, but we're still going to hold them up here. Like, how can you? And like, people are going to say, "Oh, well, we're not." They're not holding them to the same standards of Graham Roberts, people of that ilk. And it's kind of like, well, you are, because you're giving us updates on them, which means you love him, which means you can't let him go. You still track his progress like he was some sort of Tottenham idol. You know, it's just like, what makes an idol nowadays? Can we sort of try and come to some sort of reasoning on this? Like, I just don't care about these numpties who done nothing in a Tottenham jersey, took huge money, and then fucked off again. I do not care. I don't care how many sugars he's had in his tea. I don't care what color socks he put on that day. I don't care what t-shirt he's wearing. I don't care what car he drives. I don't care whether he's at a party, who he's meeting. I do not care. I don't care if he left a spot on his plate after dinner. I couldn't give a shit. So stop doing it.
it just sort of feels like we're keeping track of players that really just never really did very much for us. And even if they did one little thing or two little things for us, they was, I think, outweighed by 1,000 things that of them being, complete letdowns of players for Spurs. And, a lot of cases, especially Tanguy's cases, like ones that have really actually burned their bridge, if you ask me, with Tottenham. I think in Steven Bergwijn's case, he just sort of did it on his own volition, just saying, like, I just can't get a spot in this club anymore. I'm just going to kind of just be a bit of a, I don't know, just be toxic towards the end of the season. Whereas with Tanguy, he just sort of gave up, like, as a player, as a human being, in a lot of ways. So there's just no reason, I think, to stay involved or even to keep track of them,
Yeah.
really, and relate them back to Spurs. But we're going to go into another segment here, and then we're going to kind of come back and explain all these segments and how you can all get involved, everybody. But the last one is Jack's new itch for Spurs. And this is a segment where I'm going to point out maybe itches that we could keep an eye on, itches that I'm kind of keeping my eye on, and ones that I'm sort of thinking about. As we know, that's basically all I pretty much keep my daily thoughts and my daily thoughts go towards is the misses, Dave, and whatever itch I think Spurs could actually keep an eye on. But for this sort of segment, again, it's going to be every single podcast where I'm going to maybe talk about a certain itch that Spurs maybe should or maybe could take a look at, or maybe actually stay away from in this scenario. And hopefully we'll see how long I can last and see if we'll find out if I can actually run out of itches to talk about, Dave. But Juranovic is what we're going to go for. And then Pavlovic is the other one we're going to go for. Juranovic, I actually, and funny enough, Dave, I'm bold enough to go for 2 itches on the first one here. It speaks to how confident I am with how many itches I'll have to provide for each and every podcast. But Juranovic, Celtic player, Croatian international, had a weird tweet from Fabrizio Romano that said he's going to be looked at by a lot of Premier League clubs and stuff like that. I thought that was sort of strange. I don't think he's actually very good. He's not even really a Conte-like right wing back or right back. He's actually quite small, only 5'8", I believe, too. I feel like he's not really that athletic or anything, too, for someone who's 5'8", not like a Tarek Lamptey type athleticism or anything. He's just sort of kind of average. I think has an occasional good ball, but he kind of just does it blindly, I think, into the box. Doesn't even look very good, if you ask me, for a very progressive side of Celtic who like to play attacking football. I don't even think he even looks that great for the likes of them. But I don't know. This tournament, he sort of stuck out for Croatia. He's looked better than some of the other fullbacks. Weirdly, Borna Sosa, that guy that Spurs have been linked to in the past, that left back over for Croatia, has looked really bad, whereas Juranovic has actually looked okay. But Dave, any strong opinions on Juranovic quickly?
I think he's let Celtic down a number of times when I've watched him. I think he's probably, when I've looked at the Celtic team, I think he's an area they can improve on. I'll be honest, I think Josip Juranovic is what Ben Davies at left back is in Croatian, to be honest with you, Jack. It actually starts for Ben Davies. For me, I just don't see the consistency there in his game. I think this guy's a bit overhyped, in my opinion, Jack.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there. The other one is Strahinja Pavlovic, plays for Serbia right now over at RB Salzburg. The reason I pointed him out here is he's someone that I've kept an eye on, maybe just because I do like RB Salzburg. I like their coach, Matthias Jaisla. But also, he's a big, big, tall Serbian, Dave, and built like a tree, like many of them are. I think 6 feet 4 inches, and he's very good in the air. And he's kind of, that's his best attribute, and that's something that Spurs need, is someone that's really good in the air, dominant in the air, if you will. I sort of feel like Pavlovic fits that bill. I think we need to see more of him in the future. I don't think he's really actually maybe the best sort of like I think, let's say, mentally composed center back. He's actually a bit like Romero from what I've seen in the World Cup. He loves to step out and just absolutely clatter somebody and just and sort of do whatever it takes to take them out and win the ball. And he's also really aggressive in the air, really good things that I think Spurs need. But he also seems a bit raw in a lot of ways too. And that Serbian defense looked shaky, really shaky. And that might be because of Stojkovic, who didn't seem like maybe the best of managers when setting them up. Or it also could be because some of those center backs are a bit shaky, and some of that team could have been a bit shaky. I'm not sure. But if any of these itches I were to maybe suggest, Pavlovic, just because he sort of fits maybe some of the attributes that we're looking for in a new center back for Spurs, which is a center back that's a bit more dominant in the air and a bit more dominant physically than the other center backs we have. But I wanted to kind of talk about too, Dave, how we've made
Just
some kind of new. Yeah, Dave. Yeah.
if there's any cream sponsorships out there watching, feel free to sponsor Itch of the Week.
I'd be happy to give more minutes to the itch of the week too, if that were the case. And that way we could give more minutes to it, Dave. But we can only give so much at the time until the cream sponsorship comes. But everybody, for this time being, if you're still listening, we want to get you involved, and we want you to sort of find a way to feel like you can be in touch with this podcast. You can find your ideas, your suggestions, whatever it may be, or just your sort of kind of funny takes, be involved in the podcast. So I do want to say that there is sort of an ask the audience kind of a theme that we want to bring to this. And so if you have maybe suggestions for the new Jim White topic, maybe something that you know would really trigger Dave, as I've kind of done here today, feel free to suggest it to us. If you feel like there's a transfer fraud watch story that you've seen, perhaps a certain kind of article or whatnot, or thing on Twitter that you've seen that just seems like total BS, feel free to bring that up to us, and I'll be happy to take it down. Any itch suggestions? Honestly, a bit of my forte, a bit of kind of my realm. But if you have any itches that you've been keeping an eye on, feel free to suggest them. And then also topics that you feel like need more discussion, that or maybe need more light sort of shedded on, as we've also kind of scattered in here with the Richie situation, with the likes of Kane maybe needing to drop deep in order to fit Richie in. Also the likes of in the case of the new Dier contract, all those sort of kind of topics that we like to bring up too. If you feel like there's something that we haven't shed light on in whatever sort of shows we do on the channel, and you want that to be brought up on the podcast, feel free to do so. And I think the best way to do it, Dave, is grabbing that flat cap membership. There are a lot of people that already have the fan show membership, which we're really, really thankful for, because they come on the fan shows and have their say. People, the elite membership, absolute legends for their generosity. But if you do want to get involved on this podcast and you do want suggestions, I think we're going to do it a lot through the community section, Dave, and we're going to do it through anybody that has a flat cap membership and above, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so look, you guys have given us a really good loyal following, and we want to start giving you the opportunity to start influence or helping, our discussions, what you want us to touch on, help getting your suggestions in on the show. So just basically giving you more ways to help influence us and more of a say around here, basically, on what we're doing. And it is a privilege for the fans, for the flat cap membership and stuff like that. And basically what we'll do is up in the community section, We're just going to put in a little post there, and you put in your suggestions. Also, don't be afraid to DM us at the Irish Y on Twitter, tag us in stuff and stuff like that for future podcasts. We'll put it up every weekend, so then you guys can get your stuff in, and then the podcast will be out from now on every single Monday. So guys, when you're looking around socials and you come across stuff and you think, oh, that's funny, or that's something the boys could talk about, this, that, or the other, please keep us in mind, tag us in it, send it to us, because all we want to do is just build more of a rapport with you. I like to think we're friends, so let's take this to the next level, start getting involved. And the whole idea is we want you to send us stuff for our podcast and then hopefully formulate it going forward. It's a great idea, so please, but it takes your interaction, so please get involved with us.
Want to get you involved, everybody. I think, a lot of these podcasts, especially maybe in the Spurs universe, could certainly use a YouTube channel that gets people involved on these sort of pre-recorded videos like this, everybody. So if you want to get involved and get this podcast going, feel free to do so. And we'll continue to sort of announce this stuff each and every time. But as always, everybody, come on, you Spurs. And in Conte, we trust. Hit that like button on your way out.